And last but not least is John with his presentation rhythm platformer plugin.
Don't forget Tariq's presentation too.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, not last but not least. Yeah, we have two more. Sorry, Tariq. John was next, though. Yes. Okay.
Hello, IMGD. I'm Chenkai Zhao, and today I'm presenting an Unreal Engine plugin that allows people to make rhythm platformers. To begin with, what are rhythm platformers? Let's look at a few examples. This is a music level from Rayman Legends. We can see that Rayman is constantly running forward, and his jumping and some VFX in the background are also in rhythm to the music. This is another rhythm platformer called Muse Rush. Similar to the last one, the girls jumping, smashing, and kicking are also tied to the audio cues. So from these examples, we can see that the rhythm platformers has these characteristics. First, the player runs forward at a constant speed. Second, the gameplay events, such as the obstacles, the gaps, are arranged according to the soundtrack's audio cues. Thanks to the Unreal Engine, SketchUp, a 2D platformer, is more straightforward than before. And to make rhythm platformers, we want to extend the engine's functionality. The most important feature for rhythm platformer is that the character is running forward at a constant speed. Therefore, if we multiply the speed with the audio time, we can visualize the player's location on a timeline. Second, if the running speed is changed from 600 per second to 800 per second, we wish the plugin will rearrange the obstacles themselves, allowing the designer to experiment with different speed settings more easily. Allow me to show you the tool. The plugin is an overlay on the editor viewport. It is comprised of three main components: the button box on the left, the toolbox in the middle, and the main waveform canvas. The button box contains a list of functions. Back to the beginning sets the level viewport back to the beginning of the soundtrack and the starting of the game. Reset reloads whatever soundtrack detected in the scene. It also serves as a soft reset button to the program. Refresh running speed gets all the obstacles in the scene and recalculates their location according to the new running speed set in the program. Beat starting point lets the user set beat starting offset to the current location, because in the usual case, the beat of the soundtrack is not at the 0 second. In the lower middle half, we have a playback rate slider and the play pause toggle. With the help of the playback slider, the designer can have the soundtrack to play at a lower rate, allowing for more precise placements. And in the middle, we have a canvas to draw the audio waveform and other useful visual aids. The red line is where the current location is, and the green line is where the beat is. After we prototyped the whole project, we deconstructed and re-architect because we gained a lot of experience in prototyping the tool. Instead of a huge main class that contains everything, we separated into 4 subclasses. The I/O is responsible for reading the soundtrack and store the raw data to a global variable. The utility class is responsible for processing raw data, compress them, and put them into the draw array. The drawing class calls the slate interface with the data in the draw array. And feature class handles all the functionality we just covered, such as reload, pause and play, and change playback rate. At this point, I want to clarify the concepts of plugin and module. They are both a collection of functions, but plugin usually stands for a higher level of encapsulation. A plugin can contain one or more modules, but not the other way around. Also, a plugin should be independent itself, meaning not dependent on another plugin, but that's not true for the module. Rhythm Platformer plugin is first a plugin containing only one module at the beginning of the development. During the reconstruction, we found that we can't package any level made by the plugin. After reading through some documents, we found that because our plugin type is editor, this tells the engine that the plugin is dependent on some part of the editor, which makes sense because Unreal will not pack the whole editor into your game. To solve this issue, we create another module that is not an editor type and put our actor class into the module. Let me demonstrate a typical workflow. After I enable the plugin, I will listen to the soundtrack. This seems like a good place to play something. We also built a demo scene included in the tool. The gameplay mechanics are simple. The player can turn to 4 colors, and to break an obstacles, the player needs to match their color to the obstacle first and hit it at the right moment. Here is a clip of it. So how does it perform at other designers' hands? 4 people participated in the test and handed me a level they made using the tool, and we asked them to fill a survey based on the user experience. I think this is the most important aspect of the tool. The question asks how well do you think the event is synced to the music, and it scales from 0, totally not synced, to 6, perfectly synced. From the survey, we can tell half of the group think it's below average, and the other half are somewhat satisfied. We believe the sense of asynchronization comes from 2 aspects, and we call them placement errors and perception errors. The placement errors comes from the designer side, whether it is due to the designer themselves or the limitation of the plugin, such as carelessly placing or the beat setting is simply wrong to begin with. The error of the placement is large enough to sense offbeat. 3 out of the 4 present did not know what BPM is. There are great chances that they are not using the big grid as an aid. The second one is what we call a perception error. Most of our playtests use the obstacles in the demo scene, and that obstacles are set up to play the sound effect when the player presses the action button. In this way, unless the action is overlapped with the audio cues that a player cannot tell one from another, they will perceive as 2 separate sounds. To fix it, it is simple too. We should have the action sound effect played by the obstacle. In other words, when the player runs into an obstacle and successfully resolves the event on time, the sound effect should not play as soon as the action is performed, but play according to the distance between the obstacles multiplied by the running speed. This is one of the levels our playtester had made. I am very happy to see this level because the goal of this plugin is not using what I had used in the demo scene to build another similar level, but the tool should serve as an interface that helps the designer to pinpoint the interesting location they found and place whatever they desire at that spot. In my level, I did not have jump implemented for various reasons, but in this level, not only did he use his own asset, he also implemented jumps. I think he is using the tool to create something new. We also published this tool to the UA market, and you can search Rhythm Platformer plugin to get it. Here is one of the positive reviews from a user out in the wild, saying the plugin is very great but wanted support for an older engine. Unfortunately, we failed to achieve so, but we decided to maintain 3 of the latest versions starting 4.26. So in conclusion, we think the plugin does what it proposed, but could use some improvements. And the fact that it is published gives us more reasons to maintain and improve. We are also unsatisfied with the demo scene, and we would like to make another one given more time.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got one. So yeah, that's good work. Yeah, hi Joe. So actually, I had an idea to implement rhythm beats like your plugin did to help players engage and generate such as like block commands for users to pick by pressing the keyboard, following by beats. But like finally, I realized it's hard to read the value of blocks while in like random generation stuff. So to detect whether players picking are in correct order, Do you think your plugin accepts like more complex object generated and reads the player's input?
I don't think a more complicated block generation should be implemented, at least not for this phase.
Okay.
I know the concept of it sounds really good, but
Yeah.
the plugin is really, at least for now, it's like a locator to help the designer to scroll around and then find some interesting place and then do whatever they wishes for.
Okay.
But yeah, I think your idea is good. I think we should talk later.
Yeah. Because I failed on attempting this idea, so I really want to know.
Because like to my research, at least for my research, beat detection algorithm, it's really hard to do.
Right.
And you can only approximate it. So we don't think it's in the scope of the project, and then we kind of just leave it.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we can talk it later. Yeah.
Great. Other questions for John? I was a little confused. So when you showed the actual interface and we're doing kind of the live demo, it looked like you were just kind of you dragged a blueprint onto a transient at one point. How does that? Can you explain just really quickly how that works? That's just like the blueprint represents the model that you want to put in the level at that point, or what is it that you can actually place?
Yes. So what I put is just a blueprint actor. So ideally, you can put whatever you want because it's just an overlay to the engine itself. So without it, the engine works as designed. It's a lot more like a visualizer, a visual aid for the designer to pinpoint the point where the player is at that point.
So it could be a blueprint of arbitrary complexity as opposed to like the circles and kind of.
Yeah, it could be any blueprint. It could be sound effect. It could be anything.
Cool.
I was going to ask if there was any thought to like showing that something was placed in that map at the top so that you could like at a glance see throughout the whole song where you've placed things. But I feel like that is kind of mitigated by the anything could go anywhere. So what would you even put up there?
So are you talking about like a preview in the waveform canvas? Is that?
Yeah. I'm thinking like in the waveform, just like maybe having some sort of like notification, or like not notification, but like some sort of like visual that like you've placed something at this point in the map.
Yeah, I guess you can. I mean, we can extend the plugin so that whenever you place something, it also painted on that canvas, so you know throughout the whole soundtrack what you have in the certain moment. But we were not thinking of that at that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't used it, but like just like looking at like the demos and stuff at the demo that you showed, I think it can be neat to just like scroll back, look at the whole song and be like, here's where the red part is and then the blue parts, and it just forms like a cool painted waveform or something. I don't know.
Yeah, also after we use it, we wish that we can just drag on the waveform to like go to the different places. So that's something we can work on afterwards.
Are people able? Can they work multi-channel? Like, is there an ability? Like, anytime we see someone develop a tool, the first thing I think of is how is an artist going to break it? Because they will, because that's what they do. Like, so, like, let's say I want something on a beat and I want to place something on a rhythm. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think so. Because as soon as you pull in, you feed in the soundtrack, it's like a timeline, right? Wherever you have beats or the rhythm, you can just drag the interesting things to that point. So I don't. So except what you're referring to multi-channel as two parallel platforming going around, as long as it's in the player character is running in one line, that's fine. Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I guess a real quick suggestion, kind of tying into the art side of things, because I'm a very visual person. Would it make sense to maybe have like a marker-based system where you tag sort of the peaks and valleys in the wave first, and then you maybe have dots in the level that correspond to their exact locations that you can then snap objects to?
Yeah, I think snapping is definitely one of the key functions that we wanted to fill in, but we can't due to the time. And marking, because we used to have a marking system where you can tap along the music, but we end up letting it out because leaving it out because human tapping to the rhythm is kind of erroneous. So that's why we get rid of the marking system.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, I think that's all we've got time for. Thanks again, John. Yay! And last, but certainly not least, is Tarek. And,
yeah, did you get the video, by the way?
You sent me a video?
Oh, crap. Okay. Okay.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you were going to do it live. But
I mean, I can, but I did send one, but it was a bit late. It was like at 8 p.m. That's why I figured it was kind of late.
No, I should have gotten that. Okay, I am looking for it. Oh, dang it. Yeah, I see it. Sorry, I don't know.
No problem. Yeah, it's just if I don't do a video, it's hard for me to refrain from saying bad jokes every so often. So it's going to be bad for everybody involved.
Just,
I think this crowd would appreciate some bad jokes at this time. It's late. They've been in presentations all day.
All right, I have got it, and I'll go ahead and start playing that. All right, here we go.
Hello, my name is Zahra, and this is my thesis presentation, the title of which is Video Games for Social Change, Representation, and Religion Through Play. Now, the title of the game project itself is Before Akhirah, or in Arabic, Qabla Akhirah. And if there's any bilingual folks out there, you can see it's actually written in both English and Arabic, left to right, right to left. Now, first off, the abstract and experience goal. So the main core, goal of this game is to express key aspects of Islamic spirituality. And the way this is done is by speaking a hadith, which is a saying or an action of the Muslim Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through the medium of a video game. Now, the specific hadith in question is as follows. Take advantage of 5 before 5, your youth before your old age, your health before your illness, your riches before your poverty, your free time before your work, and your life before your death. Now, going off of that, the experience goal of this game becomes creating feelings of loss, hope, and reflection, specifically reflection on life and one's priorities. We're hoping to kind of instill players with a feeling of distress at losing something while also finding a sense of peace in such inevitability. Now, the story of the game itself is a bit different. So basically, players play as a young boy trying to awaken from a coma. Now, the fact that he's in a coma or asleep is not known to the players until the very end in an animated cutscene. when he wakes up in a hospital. So basically, the way the game story plays out is that players play through this kind of surreal dream world of differing environments such as deserts, clouds, and underwater ruins, and basically just told to take care of 5B45. They must meet with their 5 family members in this dream world and collect the various wisdoms that they have to offer, which are pieces of the hadith. And then in order to, I guess, leave this dream world, and upon leaving the dream world, it's revealed that the boy is in a coma from an accident that killed his mother, and he's been in a coma ever since, and that becomes the kind of ending storyline. Now we have a quick gameplay video, kind of a trailer sort of thing, so please enjoy. Now, the software and tools utilized in this game were the Godot game engine and the Krita graphics software. Now, the Godot game engine was where I did all the coding and all of, the actual implementation of the game itself. This was utilizing the GD script, which is very similar to Python. We chose this because, it has an exclusive 2D engine as opposed to a rehashed 3D one. The Krita graphics software was used to make all the art assets, and again, both of them open source, so my wallet was also quite happy. Now, moving on to the game mechanics themselves. Now, there's 6 core mechanics. These include exploration, and then the 5 pieces of the hadith, right? Youth, health, wealth, time, and life. So exploration, quite self-explanatory. Players kind of have to explore this entire dream world, and actually they have to fill the entire map, as in explore every part of this dream world, talk to all the family members in order to activate the portal, which takes them to the final area and then the final cutscene. Now, as for the 5 pieces of the hadith, there's youth, which is represented through players. They actually slowly and subtly age. Now, this is both visually and mechanically. And now on to health. Players lose health when they swim underwater. And they got to take care of themselves in order to stay alive. Wealth is a big part. Players, a lot of times they got to collect these kind of sand dollar coins in order to purchase time and wealth. Purchase time and health. As for time, players have to keep an eye on this. It's a always counting down timer that they got to keep an eye on. And then that brings us to the final one, life. Players only have 5 lives to complete the game, and with each death, it kind of becomes later in a day-night cycle, which kind of follows the 5 daily Islamic prayers. Now, there's quite a few characters in this game. There's the young boy himself, which players play as, and then there's the 5 family members. Now, the 5 family members are the grandmother, who represents youth before age, the sister, health before sickness, the uncle, riches before poverty, the father, free time before work, and the mother, life before death. Now, the young boy himself is the dreamer, who players play as, and they must, awaken him in order to successfully complete the game and experience the entire hadith. Now there's one more character, which is the Neph's character. Now, Nefs is a term used to describe a certain part of the soul within the Islamic tradition. And it's kind of a version of oneself that's only interested in worldly or short-term happiness or gain. And it's kind of a piece of the soul that we believe does not come with you when you die. It's left behind. Now, the only time that players actually interact with this character is in the ru'ya, which is in the final area of the game. And this ru'ya is also an Islamic terminology, which basically is like the blurred space between dreams and reality. And it's really in this portion of the game that the charade of the dream world truly begins to crumble. Now, as for the art and assets themselves, first off, the map itself. The whole world is actually the hadith written in Arabic text from right to left. So you can see here there's kind of 5 rows, which are like 5 different environments of the whole world. And each environment is Arabic text of that portion of the hadith. So for example, Sahitak abla saqamak, which means your youth before your old age. Your health before your sickness. That's written in clouds, whereas Ghanak abla faqarak, which is your wealth before your poverty, is written in the underground caverns. So you can see the world itself spells out the hadith, which players navigate. Now, as for left to right, it actually spells out the English word before. And the way it spells that is the spaces between that are actually explorable. Other aspects of the environment to take note of are the monument bricks themselves, are actually abstracted kind of memories from my own childhood. I made them kind of abstract so that, players can input their own kind of interpretations in them. Also, some of the cloud blocks have faces in them, and this is kind of just to create a more eerie and mysterious atmosphere for the player. Now, the player evaluations, we had 21 students, WPI, in a game design course, students. We asked them to play for 30 minutes, see how far they got, and then respond. So first off, we had our background questions. Now, this was in order to gauge the demographic of players. And it was quite clear, most players had minimal familiarity with Muslim Prophet Muhammad ﷺ or his sayings, which was, to be expected. Now, then we had our subjective impression questions. These were kind of to gauge, see what were players' first impressions as they started to play, then see did these impressions change as the gameplay went on, as they played more and more, and then with the short time of 30 minutes, were they able to discern what the story was. Keeping in mind that this game takes about 90 minutes to complete, so 30 minutes should get them about a quarter to a third of the way through, which you'll see later. Most players did reach about a quarter to a third, but it was interesting to see kind of how much of the story were they actually able to identify in that short amount of gameplay. Now, as for the gameplay questions themselves, we had here, specifically to mechanics and things. Most players had a fairly good idea of their gameplay goals. However, the slow horizontal movement speed, that was a big talking point for a lot of players, as well as the unclear HUD or heads-up display. Both of these kind of issues hindered some progress for a lot of players. Now we had some progression questions, which I mentioned earlier. So only one player out of the 21 actually completed the game. We don't know how long it took them, but the assumption is that it did not take 30 minutes because, it should take around 90 minutes to complete the game. If we asked players to play for 30 minutes, if they wanted to play more, they could. So only one person actually completed it. Most players reached about the quarter to a third point of the game within those 30 minutes. Now, the last set of questions were some personal response questions, seeing what emotions this game elicited and asking for any additional comments or suggestions. Now, the emotion part was quite interesting. So based on our experience goal, hoping to get emotions of contentment, sadness, nostalgia, and restlessness. These had some varying levels of success, for the most part quite successful. But I guess concerning was the high level of indifference that players felt. I think, in my own personal opinion, I believe this comes down to we had decided not to show them the hadith before they played the game. So they had zero context going into it. I also had not implemented any sound or music yet into this game. So that's also a big part of emotional experience that's missing. As well as finally, they only played 30 minutes, so they didn't get too much of the actual explicit narrative, which means it may have been, some things might have been quite confusing to players. So I think implementing those 3 changes would go a long way to reducing that indifference. As for additional comments, generally taken pretty well, but again, that horizontal movement was a big talking point in a pretty negative way. So we'll get to that later also. So yeah, for future work, again, these 3 big talking points: sound, user interface, and movement speed. Sound, the lack of sound effects, music, that's probably the biggest glaring hole that's got to be filled. User interface is just, that's housekeeping improvements. Showing players their health, time, wealth, and life in a much more accessible and readable way is going to, I think, greatly improve the gameplay. And finally, that movement speed, increasing the movement speed just a touch, making it a little less difficult. Players actually seem to really appreciate the vertical movement. They've appreciated its technical difficulty and things, but the horizontal movement they just felt was too darn slow. So yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Tarikai, my son is asking, how does the game end?
So the game ends with, well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. So the game ends with the player wakes up in the hospital, and they have like their family members in front of them, all except the mother, because the mother is actually has already moved on to the afterlife. And I guess it ends with them reuniting him to the living world, and then you see a little bird which represents the mother flying away from the windowsill as he awakens.
A beautiful concept, and not so much a question, but more so a compliment. I think you really put together something quite special and unique here. And as someone who appreciates mechanics in games, I was definitely nerding out about your aging mechanic. I think that's really, really cool to see it both visually and from a gameplay standpoint kind of reflect in game was very interesting.
Dean.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah. For Godot, I really enjoyed working with Godot, to be honest. So I'm an advocate. I had done with Unreal and Unity previously, but nah, Godot for me, it's one of my heart. It's one of my heart.
Dean, you're the worst theater nerd ever.
Just got it. I just got it.
Tariq, I have a question since I met with you early. So, a couple of things. I'm also your reader, so it's extra funny that I'm asking these questions because I haven't gone to these parts yet. I know that when we were first talking, like one of the things we were speaking about was when does the player actually know that, this is the hadith is from the Prophet Muhammad? Because I know like that was one of our big concerns was whether it was coming at the end after they experienced everything, so that there was no prejudgment. And then the other question that I have is, can someone just go on a path where they're just like, look, I'm just going to go for the wealth and just call it a day and just die rich? Like, could you do that in the game? Because I remember that was like another mechanic we had talked about, and I don't know if those had played through.
Yeah, so I guess so to answer the first one for the hadith, currently the only I guess the hadith is given in pieces. So it starts off like with just take care of 5 before 5, and then with each family member, they give the player like a piece of it so that means at the end the full thing is revealed. However, during play testing, we actually one of our first questions was asking like, how did you do you think this gameplay would be spoiled by sharing the hadith before the gameplay started? And the vast majority, it was like 90%, were like, no, I would have preferred to have seen it before. There definitely is the issue though of like preconceptions of people, like before they play, given that, you know, post 9/11 America. But I think, yeah, we're still considering that. Yeah. And as for the second question, yes, you can just live your whole gameplay just pursuing wealth and all that, but you're gonna die pretty young, I guess. Yeah. That's you can be super wealthy and you just won't spend it.
But you say you could die a rock star.
Yeah.
You could be a rock star.
A very young rock star, but yeah. Yeah.
Any final questions for Tarek?
Game cool, very interested.
Yeah, I'm excited to play it for sure.
Tarek, what is the biggest challenge of doing kind of philosophic or religious themed games in your opinion?
I think the biggest difficulty because even like from the lit review also, like there's a lot of religious games out there. I think the big problem is finding that balance between it's entertaining, I guess, but it's also have something deep. But I don't know, from my personal opinion, I kind of feel like you present something as you will, and then you do your best to create the mood for it. Like it's kind of like spirituality in general. For example, like Zen Buddhism or something, like there's rituals for it and things to get you mentally prepared in the state for it. But some people at some points in the day just aren't going to feel it. Like they ain't feeling it that day. I haven't had my coffee yet. I ain't going to be feeling no spirituality from it. I kind of feel it's the same thing with video games. If you're trying to elicit spirituality, you do your best, try and, you know, elicit that with the various mechanics and arts and music and all this. But in the end, it's up to the player, I guess. Like you can lead them to what is the saying with the horse, water and drinking? I don't know. Lead them to I don't know, lead them, but you can't make them drink. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Cool.
Charlie, I don't know
Cole,
if you
Cole asked a question.
If you saw Cole's question, Tarek, and maybe we can end with that.
Oh, sorry. Do you draw a distinction between religious games and games that have strong religious theming? Yeah. So like a lot of games that are like currently on the market, my game might be included in this also, where it's like the assets and the theme is religious, but is there anything in the actual game mechanics that makes it religious in nature? You know what I mean? It's like it's exact same game, just rehashed with religious names of assets or religious characters. But is there anything about that that's actually religious at all? And you can say that about anything. Like even there's versions of Call of Duty where they just switch it out to be Hezbollah fighting against, you know, American forces. It's the same game. It's just different characters and different assets. So I think there's a distinction there. In our paper, we described it as ritualistic games versus spiritual games, where the ritual is kind of like these. Yeah, Left Behind is a big one. Yeah, it has. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. There's also another high-profile one that Sony made called Haruman, Boy Warrior. It was supposed to like appeal to the Indian market by being like a Hindu religious game, but it ended up offending a lot of people because it wasn't. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yay, clap.
Yay, congratulations to Tarek and to everybody. You have finished your presentations. Now you just have to do that paper thing by Thursday.
Wow, Debbie Downer over here. Yay! You did a thing!
Yeah.
So, drink first if you are so inclined, and then paper.
Shout out to the professors for being in this call literally all day.
Long day. But it was so awesome to see all these great projects and all the hard work that all of you have done to get to this point. And yeah, super excited to see what everybody does going forward in their careers.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody who joined us today, who might have even not been presenting. We really appreciate you coming out and supporting all of our grad students. And look forward to seeing everybody. I guess that ShowFest is the next big thing where we'll all be together, hopefully.
Next Friday.
Next week. Woo.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.